Next question for the candidates addresses the sports stadium project.
Several voters submitted questions about this. Is this a project you support? Why or why not? First answer, Courtney Nielsen.
I do not support the stadium. If the developer wants to build it himself, then by all means, the Hawks Stadium could really use a remodel. As far as the stadium, no, I do not support it.
Rebecca Arnold.
No, I do not support the proposed stadium in downtown Boise. Trying to shoehorn a stadium into downtown Boise makes no sense. We do not have the infrastructure for that. The roads just can't handle that kind of traffic, and we don't have a public transit system that's functional. And I'm absolutely opposed to spending tax dollars on something like a stadium. So if private development wants to build it, they need to find a location that is more suitable, and it needs to be 100% funded by private development.
David Beater.
Well, a downtown stadium is a great use in downtowns all around the country. Affordable, accessible entertainment for families. The proposal, and we're waiting a new proposal from the developer. This is a developer, private sector driven project. But the goal is a $5 ticket. So you can get in and see a game, take your family, go see a concert, go to another event, a fun run. All those kinds of things are great activities, and to have them in the core of downtown is even better. But it's not driven by the city of Boise. It's private money and a private developer with the possibility of our convention center using their room tax funding for a stadium. So people from out of town, like we pay every time we stay in a room, pay the taxes that'll help build the
Frank
stadium.
Coles.
I think it's a great project for private development, but I wonder where the county is. Why aren't we looking out at the fairgrounds, the expo center, the opportunity to use horse racing facilities out there? I wonder where they are and why they're absent from this conversation. But on the other hand, if a private developer has the opportunity and the means and the land to put in a stadium and a sports project, then so be it. That'd be great.
Adriel Martinez.
I don't support the current plan. I think that we do need to go private. Sports stadiums are awesome. I'm a big fan. I go to Boise State games. The fact of the matter is we can't even sell out Boise State games, and that's like our biggest in the whole state. So this stadium might be smaller, but it's not going to sell out. There's going to be a couple events a year that might sell out. So it's not going to bring that much revenue. The jobs aren't going to pay well. So it's not really going to bring much to our city. And this country has a problem with publicly funded stadiums, NFL teams especially. Why do the people have to have the tax burden put on themselves when there's a lot of wealthy business developers and entrepreneurs in the community that could afford to foot this themselves, and they will still make a profit from it? So this is a national issue too. So,
Lauren McLean.
A stadium could be a great thing for our downtown, but we have changed as a city so much over the last 16 years. And I would say and have to say that my priorities with city dollars would be to address affordable housing, figure out how we could provide better bus service, and look at how we ensure that every neighborhood has the investments they need so that people can live, work, and play here.
15-second rebuttal, Courtney Nielsen.
Great point, Mr. Coles. Where is Ada County? I would love to talk to them about bringing horse racing back to LeBois Park.
Rebecca Arnold.
Again, we do not have the infrastructure in place to support that kind of use in downtown Boise, and I'm not in favor of trying to shove something in that just doesn't fit.
David Beater.
The city's part of this project, if a project were to come forward, is minimal. There are funds from the convention center and other ways to go. Sometimes sports is really the most unitive thing that we have, to get behind a team with people you may disagree with on other things. We are a soccer crazy town. It's time to build for them in baseball as well, a multi-purpose stadium.
Brent Coles.
Would be a great thing.
I think probably a multi-purpose stadium or a stadium like this is more regional in nature. People would be coming from all over between the two counties, and therefore trying to squeeze it in downtown is not a great location. But to work together regionally, but again, let private enterprise do it.
Adriel Martinez.
I think the original plan with Boise State leasing to use it for their baseball program and giving the city money could have worked out, but once our biggest tenant, left the plan, it died. So it just needs to stay dead until we can make a new plan for the future.
Lauren McLean.
When people across the city are hurting or needing to find a housing that they can afford, a city has to respond. And my priority as mayor would be to ensure that city funds are funding affordable housing before stadium. If a stadium is a good idea and it can work, then I'd encourage the developer to see it through.
Our next question comes from Glenn. How do you deal with the housing crisis in the city without density becoming an issue? We begin with Rebecca Arnold.
I think we have to take a strategic approach to where we place higher density housing. And we actually collaborated with the City of Boise and VRT to come up with transit-oriented development along State Street. ACHD is the only one who has followed through with that plan, but part of the plan was to put higher density housing along the transit nodes, along those corridors, instead of out in the neighborhoods. So I think that's the approach we have to take, is a strategic approach that looks at where they fit and avoids putting them into neighborhoods where they really don't belong.
Dave Beater.
Sprawl is the enemy of any good city, and people hate sprawl. But sometimes they hate density worse, and those things are at odds. But we're getting it right all around town. We've had great infill projects. Let me point out one just a few blocks from here. 160 units in Adair Manor, a great looking building. It has an affordable workforce and market units all in the same development. Those are the kind of things we need to do more of. You can't have affordable housing if you don't have a supply of housing. And we want to build as close as we can. We're getting it right all over town. And then new developments like Harris Ranch, which is our model to build as we move forward, new developments like that in the southwest and the southeast.
Brent Coles.
Where we've missed the mark is not building the transit system along with these higher densities. So you can have the higher density if you have the transit, but to go out anywhere beyond the downtown area where people can live, work, and play, and put in these higher densities is a disaster. And the neighborhoods can't absorb all the impact of all the vehicle trips that are going through their neighborhoods. So until we get it right in terms of building a transit system, we shouldn't be building these high densities projects outside of downtown.
Adriel Martinez.
High density is inevitable. It's going to happen. The suburban sprawl is much worse, and it's a much worse cost for people. Basically, after World War II, the big oil companies took over, and they wanted people, the suburban sprawl. It didn't come out of nowhere. So these companies are making money off of people because they're having to drive all the time, companies like Jackson's. And so we have to understand that suburban sprawl is bad, and we got to get away from that. Treasure Valley, every city's touching each other now. There's not really a separation between Boise, Eagle, Meridian, even Kuna. And that's causing traffic jams. People are angry out there. There's a lot of people that their commute to work is sometimes 30 to 45 minutes when it used to be 10 minutes. So density is going to happen, but we have to be smart with the growth.
Lauren McLean.
I think the crux of this question is that things are changing so much and have changed so much in our community. In April, I held a listening session out in Harris Ranch area. There were 67 people there, and I'll never forget a woman who was talking about all that she felt she'd lost over the years of living and her family living in that valley. And it really hit me and made me realize that our city has changed so much, and while we won't have things the way they were, we can have a conversation and expect more and better around open spaces so that people can gather, homes that fit everybody's budget in ways that people can walk to school, ideally walk to work, walk to a community center where they can have a cup of coffee and a conversation. And all of that's made possible with smart planning and a recognition of where we've come from and where we're headed.
Courtney Nielsen.
Call it density or call it sprawl, but Boise is 80 square miles, and I think that's beautiful. I think there's opportunity all over Boise, and the best part about that is it comes back to wages. I don't want, I can speak for myself. I don't want the government taking care and paying for my home. There's nothing more rewarding than buying your own house because the wages are high enough in Boise so that people can live and work here. 80 square miles of Boise, who wants to shove all that together and make it something that it's not? It's beautiful because it's so wide open. So, thank you.
Rebuttal time. Rebecca Arnold.
I think the Northwest Neighborhood Association would not agree with Mr. Beater that the city has been getting it right. The city just approved a large apartment complex on Hill Road on land that was owned for 2 units per acre. So I don't call that getting it right. And there are other areas where we have.
Thank you very much. David Beater.
Well, anybody that tells you you're not going to have any kind of change, you're not going to have, you're going to have affordable housing, and you're not going to build dense units is lying to you. And we'll never do that. We're getting it right all over town. The Northwest was a tough development, but we hit the sweet spot. The neighbors worked hard, and the developer did too. We have a project.
Thank you very much. Brent Coles.
You know, it may be that we need an impact fee for transit. It's just inevitable that we've got to have the transportation if we're going to build these kind of densities.
Adriel Martinez.
We have to look to other cities in the country like Atlanta where they've had this urban revitalization of their downtown. It's actually more affordable now to live in downtown Boise because they have a good transportation system, so younger people are flocking there. We have to look at that because that's the future for Boise. We're a big city.
Lauren McLean.
We're currently 10,000 homes short of what we need in this valley, and I know that it's possible to create neighborhoods within our neighborhoods that bring more people together, and then to be able to use those people living in those areas to create even more vibrant communities and a more vibrant city when you can walk to your schools, places of business, and places
Courtney
to gather.
Nielsen.
It's just nice to remember that Boise is bigger than downtown Boise.
Our next question comes from Roy. He wants to know, how will you represent all of Boise? Our first answer, Adriel Martinez.
Part of that is going around and meeting people in different parts of the city that I feel like our local government hasn't campaigned in the past. This campaign has been interesting because where I live, I've never seen any of these people really campaign there and send literature and knock on the door, face to face. So we have to remember Boise is bigger than certain parts of the city, but that doesn't mean we need to start some kind of, conflict between parts of the city. We have to understand that as the mayor, you have to go out to the other parts of the city and let them know that you're there. Put money into those parts of the city, especially the bench. There's parts of the bench right now that are really ghetto. The crime is up. I talked to a veteran of the police force the other day at a gas station because I like to socialize with people. And he told me that crime was up. These statistics that the cities come out with are skewed and flawed. So crime is up.
Lauren McLean.
As part of this campaign, and actually I'll start first. As City Council President 2 years ago, we started town halls, and the reason that the City Council wanted to do that was to get out into neighborhoods so we could hear from people in different ways that wasn't necessarily or didn't necessarily require a conflict. So we went out into neighborhoods to talk with people where they were at. And as a candidate now, I've had over 30 listening sessions around the city in every neighborhood. And what's remarkable to me is that all of our neighborhoods are different, but the people of this community share the same concerns. And so as mayor, I want to make sure that I get out of the building and continue to get into all those neighborhoods that I've so enjoyed. As a candidate this last time around, we'll continue listening sessions throughout the year to hear from folks.
Courtney Nielsen.
As a lifelong resident of Boise, I represent all of Boise. I know people all over this beautiful valley, and as mayor, that's where the connection is. It's all about people and getting out there, and it's about creating a balance between developers and communities and neighborhoods, and that's the best part about Boise.
Rebecca Arnold.
In my current position as president of the Ada County Highway District Commission, I do represent all of Boise. And one thing that I do is I remember every day that I'm a public servant. I am there to serve my constituents. So one of the things that I have done and will continue to do is I publish my cell phone number so that I am accessible, easily accessible to my constituents every day. People shouldn't have to jump through hoops to try to talk with their elected officials. They need to feel like they're being heard and they have the opportunity to be heard.
David Beater.
I am the mayor for all of Boise. Crime is down all over town. Adriel, it's just incorrect for you to say that. We have 15 new parks, and those are spread all over town. We have 4 neighborhood libraries where we didn't have any before at all. Our 10th rec center was just dedicated this week. Every neighborhood has shared in this, and we'll continue to do that. In addition to that, after I was first elected, we've had Saturday office hours 3 or 4 times a year, and we move it all around town, and people fill those slots up all the time. 10 minutes, first come, first serve. We almost always fill it up. People bring all kinds of issues. They get time with me. They get direct answers to their questions. I'll continue to do that, and we'll keep doing even more.
Brent Coles.
It's a challenge, but the Northwest neighborhood, I'll tell you, they really did feel excluded. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to deny that project. The City Council approved the project. I think the opportunity was there for the City Council to take that meeting and take it to the junior high school there and have the meeting, let the neighbors come full force and be there present. Now, a lot of neighbors went down to City Hall, but it's difficult. You've got to find a place to park, and you're down there downtown at night. It's not familiar. So the opportunity for the City Council to go out, have meetings, even where there's a contentious meeting or there's a project going on, they could take those meetings into the junior highs, high schools, or elementary schools, into the neighborhoods.
15-second rebuttal. Adriel Martinez.
So the police officer I talked to was a 20-year veteran, and I don't think that he's lying considering he lived here, and he said in his words that Boise, the oasis, is gone. Crime is up. You can look over Facebook and the message boards. You know, it's not like violent crimes are up, but crime in general is up in the city, 100%.
Laura McClain.
If people in our community are feeling as if we're not being as responsive to some neighborhoods or others, we have to figure out why that is and then have that conversation to acknowledge and honor their frustration and then see how we can move forward to improve that. And then I want to say on the City Council moving the meetings, when I became president of the council, we asked if that was possible, was told no, so we started
Thank you very
town
much.
halls.
Courtney Nielsen.
To represent all of Boise, to be a person of service and a welcoming, smiling face.
Rebecca Arnold.
I do think we can take the meetings to the people. We could have city council meetings outside of the downtown core. There are other facilities, such as the Ada County Highway District Auditorium, that could be used for meetings like the Northwest Neighborhood Association project to make it easy for people to show up and talk to their elected officials.
David Beater.
One of the things that I'm most pleased about is we instituted a survey. Every 2 years, you're busy people. You can't come out to a meeting every night. We call you where you are. We ask you a host of questions, and those drive policy continuously throughout the years.
Brent Coles.
The parks that are being built aren't equal across the city. Some you get sod, some you get seed, some you get some covered picnic areas, some you get playgrounds. It's not equal across the city, and there are people out in the neighborhoods, bench area, northwest, southwest, that are feeling excluded.
All right, this round we're going to go faster because of the time for the newscast. 30 seconds for this round. Glenn asks our next question. He wants to know, do you favor rapid bus lines or a rail system in Boise? And we'll begin with Brent Coles.
Yes, absolutely. We should be using the rails that we have between Nampa and Boise. Let's get that done as quickly as possible. And I was out in a neighborhood just last week, and they said, you know, one time they had express service for the buses out there, but they've gone away. I think part of that happens because it's just not convenient, and the times aren't convenient, and maybe it costs too much. I would support having us have free bus service across the city.
Adriel Martinez.
We do need a light rail. We need a light rail from Caldwell all the way to Boise. It has to happen with the growth that we're having now. If you've been on I-84, we all know there's an accident basically every day, and the traffic is horrendous. And our busing system right now is inadequate for the size of our city. We need to take it back from Valley Ride, and we need to go to the Boise City busing, increase the amount of routes, and make it 24/7, Monday through Saturday night, for all those people out there who work jobs where they get off late at night, the third shift, the overnighters. We can't forget about those people in our community because there's a lot of them. And we care about you.
Lauren McClain.
We have to make sure that we're creating a system and a community for all people. And so that means buses, bikes, trams, trains if it makes sense. Technology has changed so much that there are solutions that don't require track. What's most important is that we have the way to move people from their homes to their jobs and everything in between. That could be rail or trackless trams. It could be bus rapid transit. People in West Boise have asked for just more bus service, and that's got to be part of it, as well as pathways for people to get people out of their cars.
Courtney Nielsen.
Huge advocate for a commuter train on the already available railroad. As mayor of Boise, not only do you represent Boise, but you represent everybody commuting in and out of Boise, and you want to see that they do so in a safe and timely manner.
Rebecca Arnold.
I do think we have to look at improving the bus service. The costs have gone up, but ridership has gone down. So we have to take a hard look at that and figure out what the issue with that is. I think the question was, do you want rail service in Boise? If you mean the streetcar, no. If you mean a commuter rail between Caldwell and Boise, yes. But those tracks are privately owned by the Union Pacific Railroad, and we have to be able to sit down with a collaborative approach to try to figure out how to get that done.
And Dave Beater.
Well, the answer to this question is clearly yes. Rail is always the best option. Visited transit systems all around the country, Salt Lake in particular, where you get riders of all kinds of socioeconomic backgrounds. And people make decisions because a rail station is there that's going to allow you to have more people riding transit. But bus rapid transit is likely the option on State Street. That's the way we ought to go. We ought to do both. Both can work great. We need a funding source from the legislature, but rail is really the way we ought to go with a bus system.
15-second rebuttal, Brent Coles.
I think the point is that we need to zero in and focus on mass transit for our community. It's whether it's density, it's moving people around, it's the opportunity for jobs. Our focus right now should be laser on a transit system for our community.
Adriel Martinez.
Our transportation system is lackluster in the city, and it definitely needs to be improved for people to be able to get to point A and B without having to use their cars and sit in traffic, get angry. You know, people need alternative options in this city.
Laura McLean.
Public transportation helps housing be more affordable because it makes it easier to access your place of work from the place you have to live. We need a regional approach to do this, and that includes rail, trams, buses, pathways for people, and regional cooperation and a vision for what a 21st century transit system looks like for our community.
Courtney Nielsen.
I think it's an exciting time to build relationships with the cities and counties surrounding us and look to a positive outlook on getting people around.
Rebecca Arnold.
I do think rail is a viable option, but it is something that we have to take a collaborative approach, and we have to understand what's involved in getting that process done.
And David Beater.
Most important is to get a funding source that's other than your property taxes. Cities all around the country, even around Idaho, have the opportunity to go to their citizens and ask, will you support this, normally a sales tax, for public transportation? We need that from the legislature or to go get it ourselves by initiative.
Before we say goodbye, each of you will have 30 seconds for a closing statement.
We will start with Courtney Nielsen. Courtney, go ahead with your closing statement.
From observation, I think in the best interest of the city of Boise and its people to nominate a candidate such as myself with no strings attached to current government or past government. I see Boise as an exciting opportunity for collaboration, optimism, and I think that it's time to get started on building some new relationships and a positive approach.
Rebecca Arnold.
I want to continue to build on the collaborative approach that I've taken at ACHD and expand that to include other agencies. We have a great track record of collaboration and getting things done. The Cloverdale Overpass was a great example of that. It was supposed to take 3 years to get that done. ACHD and ITD sat down and collaborated together and came up with a solution to get it done in 1 year.
David Beater.
Well, it's been the honor of my life to be mayor of my hometown. My daughter represents the 4th generation of our family that's called Boise home. It's for her and her children that we need to make tough decisions now and make sure their future is secure. And on top of that, what separated Boise is we've been a kind city. If I could give us a motto, it's keep Boise kind and even make us even kinder. That's what I want to focus on to make sure we retain that small town feel, that civility and kindness that's made this such a great place to live.
Brent Coles.
It's clear we're at a crossroads in our history. Are we going to reduce spending? Are we going to lower taxes? Are we going to give people the opportunity to stay in their homes, stay in their neighborhoods where they've paid off their mortgage and want to continue to live there? Or are we going to continue to increase taxes, continue to build big projects, and hire consultants from out of state? We're at a crossroads. It's time for change.
Adriel Martinez.
Boise has a political oligarchy downtown, and they control everything. They don't listen to the people. They haven't for a long time. The election turnout's been abysmal, so they've never really been elected by the majority, even 51% of the Boise registered voters. I offer you an alternative choice. Somebody who knows what they're doing, who's been involved with government, who has a degree, who's a military veteran. I understand what Boise needs to do, and I am the future. I'm part of a new generation, and we have to move forward for Boise, or else things are going to get worse in our city.
Lauren McLean.
People in our community are worried. They're worried because they love this place so much and things have changed so much. And that's going to happen. We can't deny the progress we've made in the last 16 years, but we're a new city with new challenges, and we need a new generation of leaders with new ideas and a willingness to work regionally and cooperatively to tackle these issues. As you've heard, we've talked about so many of them tonight. There's a lot on the table. I hope to have earned your vote in this conversation that we've had today on November 5th. Thank you very much.
Thanks to our candidates for joining us today. You'll be hearing more from them in the days ahead on 670 KBOI.
And on CBS2 and IdahoNews.com.
Take the news with you on the radio, 670 KBOI. And for news and information 24 hours a day, click on IdahoNews.com.